Okay, so this is our third lab. So as you recall, in the first two labs, we started off by creating, and I will bring up the diagram again. In lab one, we created our virtual private cloud, right? And within that virtual private cloud, we created two availability zones, and within each availability zone, we have a public and private subnet, right? And so the public subnet in the third octet, right? We're using the odd numbers 1 and 3, and then in the private subnet for both availability zones, we're using even numbers 2 and 4, right? And so in the second lab, what we did is we created an EC2 instance uh, from the AWS console. It was an Amazon Linux EC2, which is again an EC2 instance is a virtual server, and we made it into a web server, and then we tested our web page, right? So we have an existing instance in the public subnet one. So what we're going to do in this lab is we're going to create a machine image or an image of this instance. Now, picture if this instance had a bunch of software and a lot of configurations on it. Oh, and it was used for a period of time, right? You don't have to redo all that when you create additional instances, right? What the benefit of having an image is if you had to launch 100 instances with the same configuration, you can launch them all from the existing image, right? You wouldn't have to go through all those steps, and you can actually speed up the deployment of those instances into your public or private cloud. Okay, so that's the benefit of a machine image, right? It's no different when you work. Your IT department probably has images of the operating systems, right? And if your operating system, for whatever reason, becomes corrupt, right, they can easily restore it from a machine image. And so it's the same thing in the cloud. We can create images from our EC2 instances. So we'll create an image from this first EC2. The second part of the lab will deal with creating an EC2 from an existing image. Okay, now we'll have to redo the scripts that come along with it. But again, if there was software installed, and and a Linux could have a lot of open source software associated with it, then and encryption, et cetera, security based software and settings, you wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. You would have an image of that, and you can just quickly deploy it into your cloud. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. First thing we want to do, right, and I already logged in, okay, you go to your course, and from the Academy Learner Lab, right, what you want to do is click Launch your Learner Lab, okay, and when you launch it, your AWS button, right, will be red. You want to click Start Lab, and then wait for the AWS, that little green circle there. It's yellow. When you click Start Lab, you want to wait for it to turn green. Okay. So once it turns green, you click on it and you can launch your AWS console. Okay. And I'll take us back to the beginning. So if you want to see the status of your EC2s, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can click on Services, you can click on Compute, and you can click on EC2. Another way is simply to type EC2 in the search, and it pops up. Okay, and once you click on EC2, you'll probably see your EC2 dashboard, which is right here. You should see one instance running. Okay, now yours is you're going to have to wait for the 2 of 2 status checks to be complete. Okay, and once you see this 2 of 2, we can test the web page again. And while you're waiting for that, let me explain a little bit about the instance from the last lab. Okay, so if it's running, okay, when you launch your lab, the instances restart. Okay, but if you have to, because remember in the last lab we shut our instances down to avoid the costs. And if you see our lab costs, right, we're only at 10 cents, right, 1/10 of a dollar, and we're allowed up to $50. So what we're trying to do is trying to keep the costs down wherever we can. And we do that by shutting down our instances. And a real easy way of achieving that cost savings is using the auto assign IP feature, which is like you get a temporary public IP, just like you would from a DHCP server, right? And then when you turn your server or computer off, that IP address is released back into the pool, right? It's a little bit different than elastic IP, and I talked about this last lab. Your elastic IP is more of a permanent address. So even if you shut your server down, you are going to incur some billing charges, right? Because you're keeping that public IP versus an auto sign. You're only really using it when the instance is on. So again, as a way of achieving costs, we're using the auto assign IP. Okay. And after you get the 2 of 2 status checks passed, we'll want to test our website. So as a refresher, now notice the public IP address may be different, okay? Because again, when we shut our instances down, that address we had in the last lab just went back. And then when we restart our instance, we start the process over of requesting another public IP. Okay, so we're going to click the paper or that little icon next to the IP address to copy the public IPv4. We're going to open up a new tab in our browser. We're going to right click and go paste and go. Okay, now notice my hello world pops up there. Okay, if your hello world isn't popping up there, make sure you're setting, sometimes your browser will default to HTTPS, right? And if you go HTTPS, notice this button is circling around and around, right? I won't have access to the web page because if you recall in our security group, and you click on your web server 1, you go to security, and you scroll down, right, for your inbound rules. Notice we're only allowing port 80, right? TCP from any IP address. If you wanted to allow HTTPS traffic, then you would have to allow also port 443, which is HTTPS, right? And which is also protocol from any IP address. Okay, so just pay attention to that. Maybe later on I could show you, we can add another inbound rule to the security group and allow port 443, and you would see, notice the site can't be reached because I'm using HTTPS instead of HTTP, okay? So just keep that in mind. Make sure in your browser you have HTTP and not HTTPS, and you should see your hello world, okay? So we'll get back to our console, EC2 console. And what we want to do is create an image from this web server 1 that we created in the last lab. And I actually wrote down some instructions. It's actually really 4 steps, right? So you click on your EC2 and you view your existing instance, okay? And they say right click on the instance you want to use as the basis for your eye and choose create image. Okay, that's one way of doing it. You can right click, okay, and there should be an option for creating image and templates. Okay, so you right click and we want to create an image. Okay, so we're going to create an image. So again, you had to right click on it. And you can give your images a name. So a good name for it would be AMI for web servers, right? So if you have to launch 20 web servers out there, you can use the same AMI from it, okay? So this will be AMI for web servers. I'm going to copy and paste that Okay, we're going to take off the reboot instance. We don't need that. We're not going to attach any volumes to it. Okay, and so from here, we're just going to go create image. It's that simple. Okay, and so if you want to view the status of your AMIs, under images here on the left here, left window, scroll down, you'll see images and you'll see AMIs. You'll click on it, okay, and you'll see your AMI name and your AMI AD, okay, and you see the status is pending, okay, so you can't create your image yet. You can't create your second EC2 instance from this image because the status is pending. You have to wait until the image is actually created before you can create an EC2 instance from it. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and wait for the status to be complete. Okay, so it didn't take long. It took me about 60 seconds. The status became available. And once it's available, you can verify, your image name, and obviously we're using the Amazon Linux platform. And now we can create a machine image or a EC2 instance from this image, and we would create the EC2 instance in the other availability zone per our diagram. So we don't have this EC2 instance yet created in the public subnet 2, right? So we have an AMI image out there, and I'll probably add that to the diagram. And we will grab another EC2 instance from this image and place it in our public subnet 2. We'll probably give it a different name. This one said Hello World. And this one we can call it Hello World 2 or something different, okay? And we'll go ahead and minimize this. And now that this image is available, okay, what we want to do is go back to the EC2 dashboard. Okay, we got one instance running, and we want to create another instance. So we're going to click on Launch Instance, and we're going to give it a name. So the other one was, see, I'm getting old. I forgot the name of my, was it just web server? No, it was web server 1. Okay, so we have a web server 1. We're going to create another instance, right? We're going to click on Launch Instance, and we're going to call it web server 2. Okay, now where it says application operating system images, it also has last time we chose the Amazon Linux, which is just the bare bones Amazon Linux image, right, that you get. Now, picture that we had a lot of software on the first web server 1 EC2, and so we have an image of it. We can create a second EC2 from an image, and we wouldn't have to reinstall all that software again because we already had an image of it. So we're going to choose Browse More AMIs. Okay. And up at the top, you'll see My AMIs. You want to click on it. Okay. And this is our AMI that we created. Okay. And so from your AMI, now, if you were worried and you wanted to double check the AMI ID on it, you can go to open up the other tab, click on AMIs, and look at the last 3. It's 9FE. I'll go back to the EC2 dashboard and 9FE. So I'm just verifying that's the same image, right, that I just created a few minutes ago. So we'll click Select. Okay, and then we'll scroll down. Okay, and you still have the options of choosing instance type. So again, we're going to leave it on T2 micro. And for the key pair, we're going to select, I believe it was VOC 1 that we had. So you're going to key in VOC 1. Now you want to verify your network settings, right? So you want to click Edit. Okay, and we want to change the default VPC to our lab VPC. And now we want to place it in the correct subnet, right? So the subnet, it should be public subnet 2, 172.16.3.0. Okay, so we're going to find that subnet. We're looking for 3.0, and here it is right here, 172.16.3.0. So you want to verify that it reads public subnet 2 and that the CIDR reads 172.16.3.0. Okay, auto assign public IP, right? We want to enable that. Okay, you wouldn't want to choose an elastic IP. Okay, so we click on, I want to show you, like, click on additional charges apply. So if you click on it, okay, and you can look over the pricing, and you click on public IPv4 address. Okay, and they tell you the charges, you know, with your public IPv4, and they give you your hourly charge. Obviously, it's real cheap, right? But if you left that EC2 instance on all the time and forever and ever, right, those charges would add up. Okay, and you can really look at the pricing structure from here. Okay, and so we want to use the auto assign feature. Okay, we want to enable that. And you can click on free tier allowance too, and you can examine that. Okay, now we have an existing security group, if you recall, right, that we did in the last lab. So if you select existing security group, click the drop down arrow, and you want to click on your web server security group that we created, right? And remember what that security group allows. It only allows HTTP access inbound to the web server from any IP address. It doesn't allow HTTPS, okay? And then you can click on advanced network configuration, okay, and you can examine that, but we want to leave that as is, okay? And so we've got our VPC and we've got our subnet identified. So just keep in mind, right? You don't have to specify the availability zone because the public subnet 2 is already in availability zone B. We attached the subnet to availability zone B when we created it, okay? So just keep that in mind, okay? When you're configuring your EC2, you don't have to specify the availability zone, just the subnet in which it belongs to. Okay, and then we're going to scroll down. We're going to leave storage the way it is, okay? And then we're going to go to advanced details. And under IAM instance profile, we're going to select the lab instance profile. Okay, and then we're going to scroll down and we're going to add that script again. Okay, now scripting's complicated. There's tools you can use like Packer when creating machine images where you wouldn't have to recreate your scripts. Images pertain to software and settings within that software that you establish so that you wouldn't have to add the same software to additional instances and re-add the same settings to that software. So for the script, okay, I've added it to the instructions. Okay, and there's also a video I'm going to add. It's a video from AWS, which shows you how to create an EC2 instance from an AMI image. It takes about 2 minutes. And I'm going to leave that in there. And so we're going to right click and we're going to paste this plain text. Okay, so again, right, you don't have to become Python or scripting experts, but you just need to know anything with a hash mark is just a comment. It's ignored by the script. It's just It's a way of talking to the programmer or somebody who's reading the program that explains what they're doing below. You could add another comment if you wanted to, but as you can see, the first command does an calls on the system to check for operating system updates. Okay, and then the yum update installs the web server, and the system control command enables it. This starts it upon boot for the first time, and then the echo command. Notice we had hello world, okay? So I'm going to change this to hello world 2. I'm just going to add a space -2 in there, okay? So we can see the differences in the web servers. And then from there, we are simply going to click on the launch instance button. Okay, so we're going to go back to our instances at the top. And we're going to hit the refresh button up at the top of the page. And now you should see 2 instances, and one of them is initializing. Okay, and as you can see, right, you want to verify one is in the 1 East A and one is in the 1 East B, okay, which is our availability zone A and availability zone B, respectively. Okay, and notice they have different public IPv4 addresses. Okay, we're not using Elastic IP. Make sure we're not using that. And they're falling under the same security group, the web server security group. They're using the same key pair. Okay, and we're using the Linux platform. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck web server 1, and I'm going to click on web server 2. Okay, and again, you can verify the instance ID. You can verify the public IPv4. Notice it has a private IP, right, within that subnet. So it's 3.42, which places it in this subnet right here. Remember, they'll have public and private IPs. These databases in the private subnet will just have private IPs, okay? But all 4 of them, the 2 EC2s and the 2 databases will all have private IPs. So there's a route that allows those objects within our virtual private cloud to communicate with one another. Okay, so I'm going to hit refresh. And we want to verify the security group. So if you click on the security tab right here, and you notice it's the web server security group, and you got inbound rules. We're allowing port 80 from any IP address, right? That's the only inbound rule we're allowing. We're allowing all outbound traffic. And we'll hit refresh again. Okay, looks like we got 2 of 2 passed. Okay, so once we get 2 of 2 passed, click on details, the tab right here. Copy that public IP address, open up a new tab, hit paste, and hit enter. And you should see a hello world 2 in there, which is different from your hello world. So this is web server 1. This is web server 2. Okay, so again, what we've done in our VPC is, right, we've added a EC2 instance, and then we've added a machine image from that, and we created a second EC2 instance from that image. And both of these are web servers. So our next part of the lab will be to examine more about security groups, and also we'll explore identity and access management and creating read access, for example. We'll create some users and assign them to groups, and we'll assign them read access to our EC2 instances. Okay, so this concludes the lab, and we will pick up with lab 4. Thank you.